Hey everyone, it is off to a beautiful Saturday, and I'm bringing you more horror stories. Now, we have a special guest tonight. The link to his channel will be in the description, so don't forget to check him out. And with that said, whether you're sitting around a campfire, on the night shift, or even laying in bed, let my voice soothe your nightmares. Everything started about a week ago, when winter break started, and I'm in college. I really love to snowboard, and I have a couple of friends, Jason and Phil, who always go with me. Every year we'd plan a trip up to the mountains where Phil's parents own a cabin, and we usually stay there for a few days, snowboarding and partying like good college students. This year was no different. We have all been going to the same school for 3 years now, so our classes have been getting really tough lately. Needless to say, we couldn't wait for winter break this year. Phil's parents said they wouldn't be using the cabin on the first week of winter break, so we planned on driving up that Tuesday night and heading back home that Saturday. We were so excited for the trip, and we even bought our lift tickets in advance, just to make sure that when Tuesday finally came around, everything would go just as planned without a hitch. The trip was everything we had hoped for. There were a lot of other kids around our age there, so we weren't snowboarding. We were partying at the bar in the lodge, or someone's cabin. When we got up on Saturday, we were pretty hungover and very exhausted from 3 days of snowboarding. So we had a good breakfast at the local diner before we hit the road. Thank God we had the foresight to load up the car before we started drinking that night before. By the time we had all felt like we were ready to go, it was already 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It was a long drive back home, so we were pretty far behind schedule. But we figured we might as well see how far we could get and stay in the motel for a night. Since it was just the beginning of winter break, there were a lot more people driving to the mountain than people leaving, so there wasn't much traffic on the roads. We usually take turns driving, but at this time, I was so exhausted, and I pretty much slept through the whole day while Phil and Jason drove the car. By the time I had woken up, we were far away from the mountain, and it was already dark out. Phil and Jason were surprised to see me awake, and jokingly said, "Have a little too much fun last night?" I rubbed my eyes and looked around and tried to figure out where we were. But it was so foggy out that I couldn't see anything more than a few 100 feet away. We were out in the middle of nowhere, on a 2-lane highway, so I knew we were probably about halfway through the drive back, because that's pretty much what it looks like in between the mountains and our city. Jason was driving at the time, so I asked him where we were, and he replied sarcastically, "The part where you start driving." We pulled the car over and got out, and after doing a few stretches to loosen up, I got into the driver's seat, buckled the seatbelt, adjusted the mirrors, and put the car in gear. When I pulled back onto the highway, a strange feeling came over me, like I had just realized how few cars were out that night. I turned to ask my friends if they thought it was weird as I did, but they were already both sound asleep in their seats, so I just shrugged it off and put on one of my favorite CDs. After a while, I started nodding a little bit. It seemed like I had been driving for days, but when I looked at the clock, I realized that it had only been about 2.5 hours. I was getting really tired, and it didn't look like Jason and Phil were going to be able to drive anymore. So I started looking for a motel, but knew that I would probably be driving for quite a while longer, seeing as we were in the middle of nowhere. Just as I was beginning to nod out again, I heard a strange noise that sounded like it was coming from really far away. It sounded kind of like an eagle or a hawk, but like a coyote howl at the same time. Glad I'm not near that thing, whatever it was, I thought to myself, thinking it was probably just an angry coyote. About a minute later, I hear the noise again, but this time it sounds like it's right next to us, somewhere in the bushes off to the side of the highway. It sounded even more alien and off-putting than before, and this time it was loud. It was so loud that it actually shook Phil out of his little nap. "What the hell was that?" he screamed, waking up Jason in the process. "I don't know, but I've never heard anything like..." Before I could finish my sentence, something ran across the highway, right in front of the car, making the same unholy screeching noise that had just caused Phil and I to wet our pants. It was so fast, and all I could really see was a flash of gray and white. But I did catch a glimpse of its face as it turned its head towards the car, mid-leap. It looked like the face of a rodent, but its body was the size of a small dog. The thing that really disturbed me about the creature's face were its eyes. When I saw those giant, reflective dinner plate eyes, all of my suspicions of it being a normal desert creature were instantly done away with. Something about those eyes invoked an overwhelming feeling of malice. Before my brain could even register all of it, I had already disappeared into the bushes on the other side of the road. Seeing something jump out in front of the car like that caused me to panic a little, so I ended up slamming the brakes and skidding into a ditch on the side of the road. I was speechless, and when I looked over at my friends, I could tell by the looks on their faces they had seen the same thing I did. The car's rear end was stuck in a ditch and in a state of silent shock. All three of us got out and pushed the car back onto the highway, then got back into our seats, locked the doors, and buckled up our seatbelts. I peeled out the car and heard a thud, like something had fallen off the roof rack, but I didn't care. I drove like hell, leaving 2 strips of burnt rubber on the road behind us, along with my composure. The next hour and a half were spent desperately trying to find a motel to stay at for the night, while trying to make sense out of what happened on that highway. Jason and Phil said that they had also seen as much of the creature as I did, and I'm pretty sure neither of us could shake the haunting image of those eyes from our minds. There was something unexplainable about the creature's eyes that made it seem as if it had targeted us. For some reason, it made the three of us feel very vulnerable. Finally, we reached a small roadside motel that looked a lot like Bates Motel, but we didn't care. We just needed to get some sleep and try not to think about the thing we had seen. I had that feeling you get sometimes where it feels like someone is watching you. And Jason and Phil said that they had also felt very uncomfortable, even now, at the motel miles away from our encounter with the creature. Eventually, the exhaustion got to us and we managed to get a good 8 hours of sleep that night. I woke up feeling much better about the events of the night prior, thinking about how tired I was when it happened and that it was probably just my eyes or brain playing tricks on me. I asked my buddies what they thought about it, and we all came to the conclusion that we were just delirious from partying so hard, and the creature we saw was just a coyote. We made it back after a few more hours of driving, and I dropped Jason and Phil off at their apartments. Then I went to my place and started unloading my snowboarding gear. The car was a mess after sliding into that ditch, so even though I was sore enough to collapse, I thought I'd at least hose off all the dirt and give it a good wash later. Almost the entire rear end was caked in mud, so I took the hose to the trunk first. I aimed the hose at the rear bumper, and underneath all the chunks of mud and dirt being peeled away by the water, I noticed a sizable chunk of the bottom of the bumper was missing. Had the tires kicked up a rock that broke my bumper when I peeled out after we got the car out of that ditch? Maybe that was the thud noise I heard when I drove away. I was too tired to care and very much looking forward to lounging on my sofa watching TV all day. That's when I heard it again. No sooner than I had cracked an ice-cold beer and sprawled myself on the sofa did I hear that heart-wrenching banshee scream again. An overwhelming sense of dread washed over me, and a demonic chill ran up my spine. It was right outside my apartment.
The only reason I didn't go on the greatest trip of our lives was because I was in a car accident that nearly killed me. It was bad. I wasn't able to get out of bed without assistance for that first month. Broken leg, busted up ribs. I looked more like a boxer that just got out of a match gone bad than a recent high school graduate who was planning on going to college as a psychology major. My friends and I had been planning this trip since our freshman year in high school. I know, it was stupid, but we promised if we all graduated with a grade average of 3.5 or better, and if we all scrapped together the cash from our summer jobs, we'd take a road trip through Europe. Somehow we actually managed to do it. Our parents were so impressed that they even kicked in some cash. The silly dreams of 14-year-olds were coming to life. Whitney wanted to go to Paris and see the Eiffel Tower. Jade was about Australia. She wanted to see where the Sound of Music was filmed. Jonah planned to eat all the chocolate he could stomach in Switzerland. And me, I wanted to see the courtside of every country. Mountains, rivers, the oceans. But 1 week before the plan was supposed to take off, well, the accident happened. I told my friend to go without me, but I made them promise to constantly send me updates and tell me how much fun they were having. So they left. Whitney, Jade, Jonah, Holden, and Tori. I even gave them a portion of the money that I saved up so they could go crazy. At first, everything was normal. I got pictures. They even sent me a package from England full of little knickknacks and snacks. I hated the Iron Brew, but the Cadbury chocolates were to die for. But everything went wrong shortly after Australia. Below are the emails and messages my friends sent me when they had the time. These all take place over about 3 weeks. After that, everything goes silent. Their parents have yet to hear from them. They filed missing persons reports, but I think if any of them are still alive, they won't want to be found. This one is from Jade. Jesus Christ, you won't believe what happened last night, Layla. First off, let me make abundantly clear that no one is dead. And no, the trip is not over yet. We got really lucky. Second off, Jonah is a fucking moron, and I swear to God, once his stitches are out, I'm ripping him a new one. Okay, so last night we were out a bit late. We all got a little tipsy and we were heading back to the hotel. Legal drinking age is 18. It's not like that time that we tried to sneak into Beverly's with those fake IDs. On the way back, we stumbled across another drunk who made a pass at Jonah. And you know Jonah. His drunk ass reacted loudly and violently. I swear he was about to make a swing at the guy, but the other guy swung first. I swear the drunk guy fought like an animal. Jonah did not stand a chance. We barely managed to whip Jonah away from him before he ripped his throat out. It was bloody and messy. We got Jonah to the nearest emergency room, got him patched up, and headed home back to sleep it off. How much do you want to bet that he's not even gonna remember it in the morning? I'm gonna hit the sack. Jonah is a moron. The next one is from Jonah. Jade told me she had sent you an email about the fight. She really needs to chill. I'm really not that bad off. Besides, the guy was a creep. I do remember what happened. Despite what she thinks, we were heading back when this creepy guy complimented my skin. Said it looks smooth and rosy. That's not even flirting anymore, that's just creepy. I mean, he was totally your type. Tall, dark, handsome, blue eyes and a bit of a scuff on his face. But not mine. I'm fine though, you can barely tell where the guy got me. I think he had a knife because I got ripped. I can barely tell now, he must have just gazed me. We'll be coming back up and heading to Poland next. Gonna cross through Germany to do that, but I don't mind the drive. Besides, Germany equals more beer. I miss you, and next time you will totally have to come along. The following one is from Tori. I really wish you were here. I miss you so much, so much. How's your therapy going? I hope it's going well. You really missed out on some beautiful views today. The camera doesn't quite capture it, but I hope to paint it once I'm home back with my supplies. Maybe I can bring a little of this place back to you. I think I'm just homesick. I might cut my trip short and head back. I'm really worried about you. This one is from Whitney. Did you talk Tori out of going home yet? I don't think she's willing to admit how spooked she got when that bum attacked Jonah. She started crying when she saw how bloodied he was. I was pretty freaked too. But it was way worse than it looked. He's actually completely fine now. Stitches came out. There's not even a scar. I'm pretty sure Jonah actually bummed there is nothing to show off for when he gets back home, lol. But yeah, nothing to worry about. He's still the same energetic Jonah we all know and love. Holden's horrible at remembering to email you. I've told him like 6 times. Did he do anything other than that one time he sent you a WhatsApp? He totally only did that because I nagged him. I wish you spent more time in Italy, but we're making great time through Germany. I'm gonna go now. Kick ass and take names at Overwatch for us when you can sit up, alright? Tori messaged again. Jonah's almost too over the top since the attack. I think he's trying to make up for something. I don't know what. It's like, remember that time that he pounded Mountain Dews all night while we were gaming? This was during our League of Legends phase, which I'm glad ended. But Jonah was incredibly manic, and he was constantly getting up to pace. He's like that, but 24/7. I don't think he's slept a full night, and it's almost impossible to make him stop for the night. We want to relax, there's no rush to get to Poland. I'll talk to him when I can to get him to settle, see what's wrong. Love you. The next one came from Jade. Well, Tori went home last night. Her clothes and passports are gone. She left a note saying she really missed you and her parents. She'll make it up to us when we're home. I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed she didn't talk to us beforehand. She was right though, Jonah needs a chill pill. Is this how some people deal with trauma? Because, I mean, you weren't there, but that was pretty bad. I can't even imagine how Jonah feels. But he's Jonah. He never lets anyone in. It's why you two broke up sophomore year. Kid has issues. I hope this trip through Europe may help him learn more about himself, but I think it's making it worse. The next message came from Whitney. We're in Denmark because apparently John decided Poland was a stupid idea. Sorry. So Jonah offered to drive us through the night. I said no, but Holden and Jane were all for it. So I sucked it up, took something to make me drowsy, and knocked out in the back seat. When I woke up, Jonah and Jade were having a shouting match, and it turns out we're in Denmark. That wasn't the plan. He didn't clear this with us. Holden's on his side, saying that Denmark is a cool country too, but Jade's royally pissed. I can't blame her. We promised at the beginning of the trip that we were to clear any travel plans with each other. We'd talk about it. That's another reason to miss you. You're so good at talking. Jonah's message came next. Everyone but Holden's pissed at me. Listen, I'm fine, I promise. Just had to deal with some insomnia lately. Is that really that bad? It's not like I'm as bad off as you were. There was a brief moment that morning of the accident. We all thought we'd lose you. The insomnia goes away in the day. I can sleep then. Everyone can go and have fun during the day. I get to sleep, and at night I do my shit. There. Nothing's wrong with that. I mean, another reason I wish you were here is that because I've been having pretty interesting dreams involving you when I can sleep anyways. TMI. But maybe I should have been less of a puss with you back in the day. I shouldn't have pushed you away. When I'm back, can we go on a date? I'll buy. Anywhere you want to go. Jade message came then. Jonah made a pass at me, and he's not drunk. I'm confused and worried. Not gonna lie, he was pretty smooth about it, but I've never thought of him that way. He's like the obnoxious little brother you love anyways. I told him no, and he accepted gracefully. Talking to Whitney, and he also made a move at her. And Holden? Jesus Christ, it's about time that dumbass fell out of the closet. Holden's pretty into it though. Wondering if the trip was a success in that matter. We're going up through Scandinavia now. Sweden, here we come. At least we're in some of the most gay-friendly countries in the world right now. Although I swear to God, someone has been following us. I've spotted this small white car twice now, and I think it's the same driver. But I'm probably just paranoid. Holden finally messaged too. I know I don't email you often. I hate writing. But something's really wrong with Jonah. I think he hurt someone. Last night we went out for drinks. I've always thought Jonah was cute, but never thought he'd give me the time of the day. We shared the hotel room. Nothing happened, but it was nice. But I woke up this morning and I was trying to find something to wear and accidentally went through one of Jonah's bags because our bags looked the same. And I found one of his shirts. It's covered in blood. And I found Tori's passport. It's bloody too. I've been reading, and there's been 2 bodies on the same route we've been going. I also called Tori's mom, and she hasn't heard anything from her daughter. She hasn't gone home. What should I do, Layla? You were always the smart one. Jade messaged. Jonah's lost his goddamn mind. I'm surprised I get signal out of the middle of nowhere, but Holden asked him about Tori, and Jonah got really defensive. Then he brought up clothes covered in blood and that Tori never made it home, and Jonah snapped. He pulled over to the side of the road and lunged for Holden. Whitney tried to break it up and got pretty fucked up for it. They'll all be okay as soon as we get to the hospital or something. He's gone now. He took the keys with him. I'm gonna go try to call for help, but Jesus Christ, how have things gone so wrong? The following message came from Jonah, and it was sent to all of us. I am with Master now. He never meant for this to happen. He never meant for me to get turned. He tried to find me, but my own stupidity kept us going. I'm so mad at myself. I should have told you guys what's been going on. I've been barely sleeping. Any sort of bright light fucking hurts. And Tori. I never meant to hurt Tori. I swear to God. She was one of my best friends, but she's dead. And I killed her. I couldn't stop myself. By the time I came to my senses, I'd shredded her to pieces. If they ever do find where I dumped her, she'll probably be a Jane Doe for the rest of time. Master found me running around and around and stopped me. We're someplace safe now. He'll help me. But I need to know one thing. Did I bite you guys? Whitney then sent a message. This was the final message I have received from any of them. You bit me and you bit Holden. Jade's fine for now. I don't know how long though. I feel strange. Like there's something burning in my head down my spine. Holden's starting to feel strange too. Layla, we love you so much. Please don't try to come find us. Go to college, have fun, make new friends, study hard. Forget about us. We're dead anyway.
My two friends and I were driving to Chicago about 2 years ago. My friend Zach attended college there, and we would drive him up so he could stay home longer and we could meet some of his college friends. It was 2012 and we were all 18, except for Zach, who was 19. He had come back to our hometown for winter break, and the short vacation was coming to an end. We were so excited to drive his mom's car the whole trip that we had a driving schedule written a week beforehand. The plan was to drive him up, stay for the night, and then Jay and I would take his mom's car back the next day. We left around noon on Saturday, after we loaded Zach's clothes and a cooler of snacks into the car. The trip started fine. We were listening to music too loud, eating terrible food, and yelling at Zach to drive slowly on the icy roads. He was always a bit of a reckless driver. We argued over whether seatbelts were hazardous or worth wearing, and Jay and I agreed that they were, but Zach stood firm on not wearing his. After a couple hours of road trip games, singing, and inappropriate conversations, Jay ended his turn at driving and hopped in the back seat. The sun was starting to set, and he said he was thinking of taking a nap so he could get a little high and or drunk before we went to bed in Chicago. We had stopped at a quick trip gas station, and I was not in the mood to take my turn at driving. Zach said I could take his next shift if I wanted to switch with him, and I was happy to trade. We got back out on the road, and Jay eventually threw his feet onto the console between the front two seats, blocking Zach and myself from using our armrests. We tried to elbow his feet down, but he said he was comfortable, and we already had armrests on the other side of our chairs. We called him names and then got over it. But once his breathing started to get slower and louder, I nudged Zach with my elbow. He looked over and I gestured down to Jay's shoes. I slowly untied them and tied them back together. Zach looked at me confused and reminded me that we were in a car, so he wouldn't be able to trip. I told him it would happen once we got out at the next gas station, and we both giggled about it in anticipation. Zach and I drove for another 2 or so hours, just talking and reading things online. We kept the radio off so we wouldn't wake Jay, but we did sing a few songs that we knew from heart in hushed voices. There were fewer and fewer cars on the road as the night turned from indigo to pitch black. Our conversation started to slow down as we ran out of things to talk about. I felt my eyelids getting heavy, and knew I would be falling asleep soon if I didn't do something. I offered to take over driving, but Zach said he was feeling fine and I could rest my eyes if I wanted to. I didn't want to be a jerk and leave him alone, so I tried to stay awake. I guess it didn't work though, since I remember waking up after snoring myself awake. Zach laughed at me and I flipped him off before I started to drift off again. I woke up again sometime later. I didn't look at the clock, so I'm not sure how much time has passed between my naps. And the seatbelt was cutting into my neck. I tried covering the spot with my shirt, putting the seatbelt behind me, and putting it over my shoulder, but it was all too uncomfortable. Zach noticed my struggle and unhooked my seatbelt, making a comment about how he was right about the seatbelt argument. I rolled my eyes and decided not to start up the debate again, and then I fell back asleep. I woke up one more time on the trip. A loud noise stirred me from my dreams, and I slowly opened my eyes. We were going down the highway still, and there didn't seem to be a single car on the road. I wasn't sure what had made the noise. I was still tired and trying to figure out when the car began to drift over the line on the side of the road. As the tires ran over the bumps there, I heard the same noise that woke me. I shot up and looked over to Zach, whose head was hanging slightly with his eyes closed. I screamed his name and his head snapped up to the road. He immediately realized we were drifting off the highway and swerved a bit too sharp to get us back on it. We would have been okay if it had been any other month. If it had been just a few degrees warmer, we would have just gotten right back on the road and finished the trip. But it was winter, and all the roads had not been cleared for a while, so there was a little bit of snow and just enough ice on the road to screw it all up. I don't really remember much. I just remember trying to grab onto something, but my weight was suddenly pulled upwards as the car flipped. We hit the guardrail on the side of the road and it was just a blur. What had happened was I went through the windshield, but I wasn't the first one. Zach went out the moment we hit the guard, and I flew out as the car bounced back halfway onto the road. They said that I would have probably died had the windshield not been broken. I owe Zach my life for that. The next thing I remember, I woke up on the side of the road, about 20 feet from the car. I was in excruciating pain and I tasted blood that I knew was covering me. I was looking up at the night sky and listening to the ringing in my head from me clenching my jaw too tight. And then, Jay's screams brought me back to reality. I tried to roll over to run to him, but I quickly found my legs were broken. My ribs hurt too much, and I was extremely dizzy. So instead, I just lay there uselessly, looking around for the car. It was down the road a bit, flipped upside down and on fire. It made no sense for it to be on fire in the stupid snow, but it still was. And I could see Jay hanging upside down in the back seat, trying to unhook his seatbelt. It finally unlatched and he crawled out of the back seat to the front. I screamed out to him as he pulled himself out of the car and onto the cold street. He looked up at me and looked so relieved that I wasn't dead. He then went to take a step away from the car, and he fell. But as he fell, he slipped on the ice and hit the ground head first. I screamed and screamed his name, but he just laid there. The fire on the car started to spread, and I fought through the pain and dragged myself towards him. I was pathetic. I didn't even make it back onto the road. I was struggling not to black out as I saw his pants catch fire. The flame had moved halfway up his legs before he slowly regained consciousness. He started to screech in this terrible way that sounded so dizzy and confused, and yet so pained. He couldn't get back up, and the fire engulfed him. I eventually passed out, screaming and crying on the side of the road in a puddle of my own blood. I healed, It was stupid little injuries. I broke a minimal amount of bones, lost very little blood, and was back on my feet within the year. Zach passed away the moment he hit the windshield, they say. Jay passed away from the fire. And I was walking around, being told how lucky I am before the next Christmas. I was in the hospital for all their funerals. I don't think their families wanted me there anyways. They never said it, but I always felt that they knew it was my fault. I saw a therapist for about a month, but I hated every second of it. He kept telling me that it wasn't my fault, and I don't want to talk about the accident to anyone. I don't talk to high school friends because they know about it. I don't like to think about any of it ever. The last time I did, I cut from my wrist to my elbows. Somehow, I still survived. It was my fault. I should have forced Zach to wear the seatbelt, so he didn't go through the windshield. I should have been wearing mine, so I could have been in the car for Jay. I shouldn't have let Zach take my turn at driving. I should have stayed awake. But the thing that haunts me still is that I know for a fact I killed Jay. I murdered my best friend. I know he would have walked away from that accident had his shoes not been tied together by the useless scum of earth. Me. I want to die at the moment and somehow make it even for us. I haven't talked about this to anyone in almost a year now. And I scream at the people that bring it up. I had to write this to get it off my chest. I had to write it because things had started to get a little easier. I wasn't planning on ways to die slowly to match his pain, and I was starting to think about having a future. But then, I started having the nightmares again. I had dreamt about them in the car accident for months after it happened. I felt their presence in the darkness. I knew they were haunting me because I was supposed to die with them. It's why I kept trying to die early on. And why my mom forced me to go see a therapist. But the haunting finally started to go away. I went half a year without them. And now they're back. It's stupid stuff. Things I know don't exist and aren't actually related. Things I know don't exist and aren't actually related. Like that I left my shoes too close to the water heater in my closet, and I found them melted in there. I threw them away and just wept, thinking they were a reminder of what I did. That was less than a week ago. The reason I wrote this story for my first time tonight for strangers is because I dreamt of them just before I wrote this. I saw them die, and then I woke up covered in sweat. I could smell burning rubber. I checked my closet, but I don't have any more shoes, so the smell wasn't coming from in there. I turned around and, as stupid as it sounds, and as many times as that therapist said it was just in my head, I saw their figures in my doorway for just a second.
I keep my daughter's baby pictures in the glove compartment of my car. Every time I stop at a rest stop to get gas or use the bathroom, I take them out and sit for a few minutes. Just look at them. Annabelle was a chubby baby with a head full of blonde curls, a wide grin, bright green eyes like her mother's. Beautiful. I've been driving for 10 days, 19 hours and 31 minutes. I've been to 3 states, 12 motels, 84 cups of coffee, and 67 cigarettes. I've slept exactly twice, each time for half an hour at most. The back of my car is filled with empty styrofoam cups, receipts, and the remnants of fast food containers that I can't even remember purchasing or eating. The smell is terrible, but I don't really notice it anymore. I'm rat racing the path that Annie and her boyfriend John took on the way to visit John's brother at the University of Texas. However, my trip is slower, with no real end in sight. I don't have anything to go back to. When the kindly woman, who always seemed to be manning the coffee at a roadside cafe, asks me what brings me to their part of state, country, whatever, I always reply, "Oh, just seeing the sights," and then give them a benevolent smile to suggest that I'm out appreciating the beauty of nature and the local wonders their corner of the world has to offer. They like that. I'm a nice man, and they give me lots of free refills. No one pays attention to the shadow under my eyes or the stubble on my chin. If anything, those make me seem rugged, mysterious, and handsome. A good catch if they were 20 years younger. More than once, I've been asked if I'm married. Because I have a daughter around your age, a really sweet girl with a great personality. When this happens, I just smile, sip my coffee, and sometimes answer, "Not anymore." More than once, this has earned me pursed lips, eyes wrinkled in sympathy. "Oh, you poor thing." And then I don't even have to pay for my drink. It's interesting the way the world works. I imagine that if I were to sit there and tell these women, waitresses, proprietors, cooks, my life story, they should sit and listen and insist on taking me home, cooking me dinner, and taking care of me. Emily was like that. She was far more educated, but she worked as a night nurse and she loved taking care of people. This was the kind of woman that she would have become. When I think about things like that, the finger where my wedding band was starts to itch. Now, I'm somewhere outside of Mission, in a Waffle House off Route 635. The coffee is lousy, and my waitress's name is Linda. Her name tag has a sticker on top that says, "Proud employee for 35 years. It makes me want to cry, and I strike up a conversation with her. That's what Annabelle would have done. She always told me that everyone has a story and no person should ever be discounted, because they all have something to offer. She loved talking to strangers and would often come home and recount to me the most insane stories in a breathless, excited voice. An old man who lost his leg saving a friend's life in Vietnam. A girl that had taken up stripping to put herself through design school. A homeless man convinced that he was the next president of the United States. That last memory makes me smile. And when Linda playfully asks why I'm smiling, I say, "My dad would have loved to meet you. I bet you have some stories." She gives me a toothless grin and proceeds to tell me of the time she met 3 of the members of KISS in January of 1983. It's a nice story, and when I leave the Waffle House at around 5 in the morning, apologetically telling her I'd better head on my way and find my motel, I'm still smiling. I have a small token of remembrance in the parking lot, since I doubt I'll ever be back. I drive through Mission for a little while before merging back onto the highway. It's a lovely day and I feel like there's a song in my heart. With every mile on the journey, I feel lighter. It's been a while since anyone at the rest stop has asked me why I look so sad. I leave souvenirs at every stop I like. In a way, it doubles the happy memories, and it gives the place something to remember me by while I take some of its happiness with me. It's a good feeling. No, it's a great feeling. Annie would be proud of how I'm doing. She always liked to see her father smile. Annabelle was 17 and in her senior year of high school. Her laughter sounded like bells and she wanted to be a veterinarian. Her dream was to study biology at Texas A&M, and then move out to a farm and take care of horses. It was such a little girl's dream that me and Emily had often laughed together, saying that she would never grow up. Grow up she did, though, right before my eyes. And when she announced that she wanted to take a road trip with her 19-year-old boyfriend to visit his brother in Texas, it was all I could do not to refuse outright and lock her in the room for the foreseeable future. It wasn't that John was a bad guy. I liked him. He was bright, with a full scholarship to the University of Illinois to study business. He was always courageous, opening doors for Annabelle and Emily, standing whenever either one of them came into the room, and he loved his family, which boded well for his relationship with Annie. But I couldn't acquit myself of the notion that I was letting some college punk take advantage of my baby. It was Emily who convinced me, reminding me that Annabelle had always made responsible decisions in the past, and that we had no reason to suspect anything. He was just taking a trip to visit his brother and giving his girlfriend a chance to visit her dream school at the same time. In the end, I had to agree. It made Annie happy. I stopped to pee at a McDonald's and leave another token in the bathroom. There's no sentimental value, but the feeling of lightness is addicting. And I rationalize by thinking how much I appreciate that they leave their restroom open to the public. I get back into the car and drive on, miles to go. Annie called every day from the road. The weather was beautiful. She and John were having a great time. She was so excited, thanking me for letting her go. Emily politely refrained from saying, "I told you so." And my heart could have burst to hear the joy from my little girl's voice. Aside from a couple of trips to Disney World when she was younger, Annie had never been out of Illinois. I couldn't help but feel a little grateful to John for taking her on her first big adventure. Maybe this was someone I could trust with my daughter's heart after all, a genuinely good guy. Until the day she didn't call. No one ever would have imagined John would have a temper. Not even John himself. I don't know what they fought about, and John was never able to articulate it, but I can picture it. Annie's eyes widening as she shouts. John's cheeks flushing as he slams his fist on the steering wheel. The angry toss of Annie's hair as she storms out of the car at the rest stop on Kansas-Missouri border. The squeal of John's tires as he pulls away and leaves her there. No one ever would have expected that either, but it happened. I buy a Crunch Bar from the 24-hour Mapco and eat it in the car, just staring. The attendant's eyes are sunken and rimmed with dark circles, and he tells me to have a nice day. It's 3 in the morning. John called Emily from the police station in tears. He said he had driven angrily for maybe half an hour before he came to his senses and found an exit to turn around. By the time he got back to the stop, Annabelle was nowhere to be found. I left Emily to mind the house and took a red-eye down to Kansas to meet with the police. They assured him that they were doing everything in their power, and I believed them. I patted John on the shoulder. I told him not to worry, and sent him home, sure that everything would be fine. They found the first pieces 24 hours later. They were fingernails and bits of hand on the side of the road. They found parts of her torso a few miles away, a foot with the toes painted to match their fingernails in Kansas City. Her heart was in a dumpster and a cartridge. I didn't tell Emily. I wanted to wait until they were sure, prayed that they were making a mistake. They found her head in Wichita. Golden curls, matted with blood, and part of her scalp missing. Only one green eye was recognizable. The other was a shredded ruin. When I got home after identifying the body, I found Emily hanging from the balcony. Her tongue was purple. She'd been there for hours. I found a note. She blamed herself. Nadine, the waitress, pours me another cup of coffee and asks me what brings me to Oklahoma. I told her that I'm passing through on my way to Texas. It's a long trip, she says, but I tell her that I have all the time in the world. Pieces of my daughter had been scattered across 2 states so far. I've already made it to 3. And if I only save John's head for Dallas, I should have enough of him to stretch the distance.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. I appreciate it a lot. And if you want to hear more scary stories in the future, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. And even donate to my Patreon if you're feeling generous. Thank you.